Hello and welcome to Diabetes Connections, Why We Need Them, How to Make Them. I'm Stacey Simms and I'm so excited to be doing this talk today, although it's very strange, as I'm sure most of you are having this experience. It's very strange to be experiencing a conference like this virtually. So I'm going to do the very best I can. I'm not really sure about sharing my screen and using Zoom for this, but I will give it a go. First things first, thank you so much for Children with Diabetes for giving me this opportunity to take a shower today, to brush my hair and put on some lipstick and, put on some jewelry and put on clean clothes. So all kidding aside, even if it's virtually, I'm always happy to talk about making connections in our community. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to, fingers crossed, we're sharing the screen. Oh, there we go. I think I did it right. We'll see what happens. All right, so this is a presentation I do at conferences like this, virtually, I suppose, or not. But it's all about making connections in real life. And I'm going to modify as I go because I think a lot of the things that I generally talk about can be used in this very unsettling and weird time when we are home, right? We're not connecting in real life. And that's okay. It's not going to be forever. You can come back to this presentation when you want some tips and tricks when we do all get back out there, and we will. But as I go forward, I'm going to talk about some of the ways that you can use the advice I give here to connect from your home and not stay isolated. And for those of you who do listen to my podcast, I should let you know that Diabetes Connections, which is the name of the podcast, came first. Yeah, it came about because my passion within the diabetes community has always been about bringing people together, mostly because I really needed it at the beginning. And then because I saw that there was a real need. It's tough to raise your hand and say, yeah, I'm going to set this up. But I hope what you learned today will make it a little bit easier for you. So here we go. Okay. We are all together in a space where you are not alone when you recognize the mess here. I like to show this because you all recognize it, right? Most of my friends who don't have kids with diabetes might recognize the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books or the Cars garbage can hiding out in the lower right-hand corner. But if you have a kid with type 1 diabetes, you know that this means we had a pretty lousy night. For those of you who don't know, my son was diagnosed right before he turned 2. He is now 15. I want to date this picture at about 2010, maybe 2011. We are using the Animas pump. Miss that ping pump very much. And you can tell it was a rough night because we did site changes. We did multiple blood sugar checks. I don't really remember what was going on, but does it really matter? And the reason I like to show this is because when we're at a conference, even a virtual one like this, we all speak the same language. But then when you go home from the conference or you close your laptop, you may feel that you're in a space where you're alone in a couple of days. So let's talk a little bit about my story. I've hinted at it, but okay, so here we go. So that's Benny, my son. My husband, Slade, is behind him on the bike, and my daughter, Leah. And this is a photo pretty much right before he was diagnosed. He was diagnosed right before he turned 2, as I said. This is what we looked like at the time. We had our first JDRF walk just a few months later. I want to say it was March or April of 2007. And this is what was going on. I don't know about you guys, but I really was excited about getting rid of the diaper bag. I had a little girl, obviously, then I had a little boy. And I was thinking, wow, he's going to be potty trained soon. We're going to get rid of the diaper bag. But I look at this picture and I laugh because look how full that thing is. I don't even know what is in there. There's probably clothes for 3 days. There's probably snacks for 2 weeks. Boy, I want to say to you, Stacey, of that time, bless your heart for schlepping around that huge backpack. So our connections were really fortunate, and I think it shaped the way we looked at diabetes. We began to connect right in the hospital. So when Benny was diagnosed, of course, we were in the Children's Hospital here in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And we had people in and out, healthcare professionals, and we were there for 3 days. But I think it was right at the end of the first day, a nurse came in. She wasn't our nurse. And she came in and she just said, "Hi, I want to let you know that I live with type 1 diabetes. I'm in great health. I have a child at home. I'm pregnant. She was visibly pregnant. And I have a job and I have a husband. And life is not what I thought it was going to be when I was diagnosed. And it wasn't what my parents feared when I was diagnosed. And we're okay. And I just want to let you know that you will be too. See ya. And that was it. It was maybe a 5-minute conversation. And it really changed the way that we started to look at diabetes. It was a real gift. And it was one that we were able to very fortunately experience again. So one of the reasons why I say we were one of the luckiest families I know is because I was already plugged into the diabetes community. I worked at WBT Radio, and I don't show these slides for like an ego thing, although yes, I did meet the mayor of Charlotte at golf, which was fun. But because it gave me a public platform for people to tell me their diabetes experiences right away, and then for me to share ours. So initially, once I shared with my listeners what was going on, I got these amazing emails and letters back in the olden days of people saying, it's going to be okay. I have type 1. It was harder on my mom than me, which I hear that all the time. I still don't know if I believe it. But, you know, I'm a firefighter. I'm a banker. I'm a police officer. Don't coddle your son. Send him out there. He's going to be great. And that really helped get us started as well. Then we met with the diabetes community. And interestingly, when I was with the radio station, I was the MC for many years for the JDRF golf tournament in Charlotte. Like many chapters, they've done away with the golf tournament, but I hosted that for years. And I met a lot of families through that, so that when Benny was diagnosed, I was able to call Evan's family. Evan is the young man in that picture. And I think her name is Katie. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot her name. But I was able to call their families and say, help, you know, we're here now. And I remember talking to you, and I remember you were okay. What do I need to know? And that's Benny, of course, at one of the JDRF walks. I think that's only our second walk. He's so happy to be with the big kids there. That is my husband at the skirt hole of golf, which is kind of a throwback now. Gosh, it's funny how things change, where, you know, for a charitable donation, the men could play from the ladies' tees, but they had to wear a skirt. And then, of course, the JDRF bag of hope. Just ways that we began connecting even more with the community. So all of those good connections in the beginning really helped me figure out the tools that I wanted to give Benny to help him succeed. And I showed this picture in a presentation I did years ago, and my dear friend Maura McCarthy, who many of you know, and if you don't, you need to Google her right now and go read everything she's written. Her blog is Despite Diabetes, and one of her many books is Raising Teens with Diabetes. But Maura said this picture really sums it up. And I agree, because look at what we've done. He knows how to swim. He's got his life vest on. We're right there, even though it looks like we're nowhere to be found. And then he jumped. Knowing you have a backup plan, knowing what you're doing, what you need to do to be safe, gives you the confidence to let your kids, or yourself, if you live with type 1, to fly. And this is what I try. I don't always succeed, but this is what I try to make our diabetes philosophy all about. And I promise you, it's not because of anything I did. It's because what I learned from those early connections. All right, so that sounds great. Woohoo, how do I get it done? Well, you could fall into it like we did. This is a photo. Everybody here has type 1 diabetes. A photo of 4 guys. So Benny's on the left. These other folks are, I will go clockwise. So Greg is in the red hat with the D. He's an adult who lives with type 1. His son, Michael, is to the right in the blue hat, diagnosed at the end of first grade. And Parker's in the front, who was diagnosed, I want to say, a year or two after that. The wild thing is that these are kids that all played baseball together in our little teeny town. So Benny makes a terrible joke. I don't know your sense of humor as you're watching or listening, but Benny's joke is that he's the only contagious type 1 diabetes you'll ever meet, because he knew these kids before. And of course, Michael was diagnosed at the end of first grade, like I said. And then Parker's dad was Benny's baseball coach. And Parker was diagnosed at the end of that season. And there have been a few other kids in our community. And Benny's like, well, you're in my homeroom. That's the end of it. So we do try to get some humor too. So how do you do it? I'm going to go through There we go. So how do you do it? I'm going to go through a few examples of what worked for us. And again, this is all when you can meet in person, right? I think I'll talk a little bit as I go or at the end about how to do it now. But these are all strategies that really worked well but you know, they take a lot of energy, they take time. So I don't want anyone to feel like you've got to rush out and do, we can't rush out and do this today, but that you've got to rush out and get these groups together right away. They will be there for you and they will come. So let's go back to the slideshow. Okay, so your best place to start, frankly, is with your school nurse. Now, again, we're extremely lucky. We had a wonderful school nurse, part-time. We've always only had part-time school nurses here in North Carolina, and that was okay because we had great school staff. But I had heard that there were going to be some other kids. Benny was the only one at his elementary school at the end of first grade. As I already mentioned, Michael, there were 2 other girls when Benny started second grade. So there were 4 kids in total. And I really didn't know any of them. I knew of Michael. So I emailed the school nurse and I said, look, I want to get all these parents together. Here's my name. Here's my phone number. Here's my email. Can you please give them my information so we can get together? Because obviously they're not going to give you the names and numbers of the people that you're trying to reach out to. That's just not allowed. So she said, sure, and sent me, she said, sure, and sent them my information. And we had a dinner. And from that dinner, which I posted on Facebook, going back to being the radio station person, I know I had a bigger following than some, not a lot though, really. And I posted the picture, talked about the dinner, and I started hearing from people all over our area. I have a friend whose child has type 1. I have a child with type 1. I want to meet you guys for dinner. I want to find out more. And that's really how my local group started. Interestingly, I can't let this go by without telling you. So this is Julie, our school nurse at the end of Benny's elementary school experience. And she lives with type 1 herself. In fact, she has been on the podcast because she had an islet cell transplant and it really did change her life. So that's an episode you can check out. Just Google, well, don't Google, go to Diabetes Connections, and this is very self-promoting, but you know what I mean. Go to the podcast and you can look up school nurse or Julie and she'll pop up. And this is the group. That's the initial group of moms. Boy, I look goofy in that picture, that we met up with at that dinner. And then a couple of years later, we had our BEAM team. And the BEAM team was a school-wide team we did for 2 years. And it was the kids' names, Benny, Ella, Addie, and Michael. And boy, that was a great experience. And they're still my dear friends, of course. All right, so what about using your endo or your CDE to meet up? This is our fabulous endocrinologist, Dr. V. You know, this is a hard one because a lot of people start here. I would say go for it if they have a bulletin board or they have a place for announcements, or after several years, now they refer people to my Facebook group, which is great, the local Facebook group. But in the beginning, these guys are slammed. They have no time. They barely look at their mail. You know, I've talked to people who've tried mailers to their endocrinology offices. Sometimes CDEs can be better, but they don't meet with patients on a regular basis. You know, sometimes you see your CDE 3 or 4 times the first year and then not again unless you have pump training. So I don't want to discourage anybody if that's an avenue for you, but it's sometimes a difficult place to spread information unless you really have your endo on board. You know, sometimes these guys really buy into what you want to do and you can get them to spread the word. It's really individual though. All right, so I asked some of my listeners to send in how they began meeting up. And this was one of the replies I got, that they found through their local teaching hospital, through the psychology department, which is really wild and very wonderful. So they have an email list and they have a Facebook group. And I think that's really great. JDRF and ADA walks are fabulous places to meet. However, they are quite chaotic. So if you decide that you want to try to meet new people, I highly recommend you have a plan. Like, you know, if your walk is coming up in September, have a plan that 2 weeks later or 1 week later, you will have a coffee at, I don't know, you know, Panera nearby. Pick a place, pick a day, pick a time, print up postcards or scribble notes, have your kids write out index cards and hand it out. We're meeting here at this time, because if you've been to a JDRF walk, you know they are wonderful, especially if you're brand new, but you know they are also crazy pants. At least ours are. They're so big, it can be really hard to meet up with new people. So just go with a plan if you're going to do that. And of course, these are pictures of Benny's Brigade, which was our first walk team. That's him on the right-hand side there. And on the far right of the screen is my dad. We did a few ADA walks in the Charlotte area, and my parents are always supportive. So I think Benny's about 7 or 8 in that picture. All right, so let's talk about social media, which is how many of you found this presentation and children with diabetes in the first place. And I like this slide because it talks here about like what social media should be, right? It's all good. We should connect and share, love it. But this is what social media can be like. It can be very, very overwhelming. It can be annoying. And it can just be a cacophony of, nonsense, especially in these times. But you can use it in great ways. So Jody uses Meetup, which I thought was really interesting. This is a New York City group, and they get together at different restaurants around the city once a month. I would never have thought of using Meetup to meet other people with diabetes, but there you go. Great way to use social media. We have used our group, and I used that dinner that I talked about to form the Charlotte Parent T1D. Is it called that? Charlotte T1D Parents. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing. I can't remember the name of the group. But I have a Facebook group that started with just a few people. And now I have about 700 members. And we use it to try to meet up. Now, right now, we're using it to check in on each other. It's become a place in the last few weeks to make sure people are okay, to find out if anybody has supply issues, to talk about homeschool, to talk about whatever. And that's really what I want to get here too. If you've got these connections already, use them virtually, like this presentation today, just to check up on the people that you already know and care about. And you can use it to reach other people. And, I hope that Children with Diabetes Outreach has brought some very new people to the table here. Maybe this is the first time you've ever heard of them or some of the people involved, and it'll spur you to do more of a deep dive of all of the wonderful resources that are online. So this is in the days when we left our houses. This is my local group doing on my left, and boy, I just realized maybe the screen is reversed as you're watching. But anyway, it's pretty self-explanatory. On the left, we all went to a JDRF event in South Carolina. A bunch of us got together and went there. And then on the right is a tech night. We used to do these tech nights. I would get the local reps of, the pump companies and meter companies together, and we would talk about what's new, what's coming up, and that sort of thing. And that was always a lot of fun. So this is another Facebook T1 parent page, not mine. Brooke, who found friends and, who bonded. Maybe in this day and age, as you're looking and listening, if you're on a parent page, you don't even need to connect locally anymore, right? So if you've got somebody, and we all have these people that we've connected with on Facebook, you kind of always comment on their stuff, you like what they're about, you seem to have the same sense of humor. I'm telling you, go ahead, reach out to them and say, hey, we're all stuck at home. Do you want to get the kids together for virtual meetup? I mean, if your kids are little, you might even get them to do things like site changes together or compare all the diabetes tech, right? Like get the stuff out of the cabinets. Who's got the oldest piece of diabetes technology? Maybe it's the parent in the house. But if you have younger kids, you can do stuff like that. I have a 15-year-old. I'm not sure that I can get him to do that, but I did ask him to check in with his camp friends and see if anybody needed anything, if everybody was doing okay. And little things like that, I think right now can make a really big difference. And these are little things that you can do to stay connected with your community. All right, back to this. Oh my goodness. Slideshow, current page. I'm gonna go right back to the beginning at some point. All right, so this presentation I hope is not getting too lengthy. Here's a story about the diabetes online community that really helped me out in real life. So my son had gone to summer camp. It was a day camp. He was about 7 or 8 years old, and he came home and said, Mom, a kid at camp says I'm gonna bleed to death if I keep checking my finger. Thank you, camper. But the kid meant well. I mean, I don't think he was teasing my son. I think he was concerned for his health, that he didn't want his friend to bleed to death. So I talked to Benny about it, and I remembered a column, a blog that I had seen from Carrie Sparling over at 6 Until Me, talking about the Joslin medalists. So we surfed that up. I'm sure it's still out there if you want to check it out. And if we can put links in these things, I'll try to put a link in. But we found the Joslin medalists, and these are people living with 50 years or more with type 1 diabetes. And I was able to tell Benny, look, not only did they poke their fingers a billion times, but the more they do it, the healthier they are. It's the exact opposite of what your friend is worried about. So you can go back and tell him, no, I need to poke my finger. I'm not going to bleed to death. In fact, it's going to help me live longer. And that little connection, I don't even know if Carrie knows this story, but that little connection, I had read something that helped and passed it along to him, made that situation a whole lot easier to handle. All right, so there's a lot of support out there. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because you are in a position where you can do a screenshot and then you can check all these things out. But these are really great and vetted by me. I mean, vetted support groups and communities where you can find what you need. So go check those out. I want to talk about camp. Camp is my favorite. I was a big camper, a camp family before diabetes. My dad went to summer camp. I went to camp. My husband went to camp. And I mean long time sleepaway camp, like 6 to 8 weeks every summer. So my kids were going to do that too. We were lucky enough to find this little 3-day program in our area. Camp Kudos is run by the Pediatric Endocrinology Group. And Benny went there when he was very little. Then he went to regular summer camp, which is a whole different story altogether. And this is our sleepaway camp for kids with type 1. And it's actually, this camp also has kids with type 2. I shouldn't say it like that. So it's kids with any kind of diabetes. And it's really just amazing. So I highly recommend that you look into camp. Fingers crossed that this summer everything works out okay. But at the very least, this is a community that if your kids are a part of, like I just said about Benny, let's check in on the camp community. How is everybody doing? If they haven't done something already, maybe nudge the counselors and the directors of the camp to get online and have like a check-in. Our regular summer camp, which is a non-diabetes camp, Benny goes every summer since he was 8. My daughter did as well. They're having regular activities online for kids to kind of stay engaged. They're doing cooking, they're doing meetups, that kind of stuff, just online right now. Diabetes in the wild, when you meet somebody who has type 1, this is a long story that I won't tell here, but we were at a bat mitzvah and Benny ran into this guy. He's the uncle of the young woman having her bat mitzvah. And I know the family very well, obviously, and he's a pediatrician. And they were able to hang out and take some goofball pictures and compare pumps and do all that fun stuff. So when you have a chance meeting like that, it's another opportunity for a connection, like Michelle wrote in when she found somebody in her office who was beeping, right? This happens all the time. And that's another way to make connections. So this is the point where generally I will tell you to make connections at the event where you are, right? If you're at the Children with Diabetes event, this is from the Friends for Life event in the summertime on the lower right, or you're at a 50 and 50 meetup, which is these two guys. Can I point to them? Yeah, okay, so Michael and Patrick, I don't know if you can see the arrow. Michael is in the red, Patrick is in the orange with the bandana, they're standing up. They climbed, in every state this past summer, they climbed the highest peak. So 50 states, 50 peaks, 50 days. Michael was injured along the way. He's okay, but he did not complete it, and Patrick did. And they're really going to do more stuff. It's a really exciting group to follow along. But the point is, they had meetups in every state, and this is the one in North Carolina. And it's very, very cool to think about the new connections that were made. And then Benny's connection, because he is 15, like I said, things have changed. He's Rufus now. He's decided that's one way that he can stay involved in the diabetes community, and he does that a lot at JDRF events. But the point of this is to stay connected, right? There are ways to do this in normal times when we have easier ways to get out there. But I think it's really worth thinking about, how can I take what I would normally do and find a way to connect? And I really want to applaud Children with Diabetes, because that's what this is all about, trying to keep those connections going, even in this wild and weird time. And if I've inspired you to think of a way to connect over Facebook, over Zoom, over, I don't know, what else is out there? Well, the kids have the TikTok and the Snapchat, so maybe they are there. We're all going to see a bunch of creative ways to meet, to stay with each other, to stay involved. Check in on your people that you already know. Reach out a little bit to find people that you don't. You can always check in with me. Here's the self-promotional part of the presentation. I think. Yes. Okay. So you can stay involved with Diabetes Connections. We do have a Facebook group. I did a community sourced episode recently. I'm going to do another one. Very easy to listen to, very easy to get involved. If you're not sure, you can always reach out to me, Stacey at diabetes-connections.com, or find me on any social media. And I have another presentation that I'll be doing about the world's worst diabetes mom. That's my book that came out just a couple of months ago. And it's all about making mistakes with diabetes, because oh boy, have we made a lot. So that's the self-promotional part of the presentation. I hope this has helped a little bit. Maybe it's helped brighten your day. I do have my bulletin board behind me. We just moved. This is my new office, so there's really nothing here. I threw up my old bulletin board, but it's funny to look at in the context of connections, because that's what that's all about. Every time I go to a new conference or I meet some new people, or do something fun, I try to put it on the bulletin board to remind me of all the cool people that this, ridiculous disease has brought into our lives. So thank you for watching. Thanks for listening. And let me know about your connections. I'm going to put a post up after this airs after the conference. Okay, I'm going to put a post up, and I want to start talking to you about your connections. So look for that. I'll put it up on Stacey Simms, the world's worst diabetes mom, and on Diabetes Connections on Facebook and wherever else, Instagram, Twitter, blah, blah. We'll try to get the conversation going there. So thank you so much. Boy, I hope this worked. I appreciate you spending some time with me. Thanks.